Go ahead and start the recording again. Okay, I've shared the screen, so whatever is on my computer screen, you will be able to see. I've also attached this PowerPoint presentation to the announcements so that if you need to go back and use it as you go through and do your assignments, you can do that. And then I also have a video link from last term that I've included, but this is being recorded, so I'll be able to paste it as well, and you'll be able to look it up on YouTube. So we are in week 3. Just a reminder, check your announcements every day. It's really important to make a habit out of checking announcements at least once a day. When I communicate with the group, I usually do it through announcements so that everybody gets the same message. And it's just a good habit as you go into the program and proceed through all of the coursework. This is how our instructors communicate with the large group. A reminder of deadlines. The initial posts are due Wednesdays by 11:59, but because I have my Zoom meetings on Wednesdays, I extend the deadline to Thursday by 11:59 p.m. so that if you need to use the materials that we have gone over to improve the work that you have done through the week, you have an opportunity to do that, and that was without penalty. The written assignments are due on Saturdays by 11:59 p.m., and the discussion board replies are due Sundays by 11:59 p.m. And just a reminder that assignments are accepted up to 24 hours late for 50% credit, and any assignment that is submitted with a Turnitin issue greater than 25% can be resubmitted 24 hours after it's returned to you for a 25% deduction. Just one reminder, in week 5, both the written assignment and the final discussion board reply will be due on Saturday. So I'm encouraging you to use the library resources at St. Thomas, and I wanted to include a link to St. Thomas's library just in case you weren't familiar with it yet. Some of you are struggling with your resources. So if you open the PowerPoint when you work on your own, you can click on that actual slide just like I did, and it will take you to the sources, or you can click on the resources that are on the home screen. It gives you some instruction on how to cite sources, how to prevent plagiarism, format a paper in Microsoft Word. There are just several different types. The style and citation guides here are excellent. I have provided you with some links, but it's nice to have a resource where you can choose what works for you better. There's some tutorials from the folks that work in the library at St. Thomas. And remember, we're working with the American Psychological Association, the APA format. Any of the other formats do not apply to the graduate program for education at St. Thomas. So if you're going to do research, you click on research, and you can click on A to Z databases. And as I mentioned in week 1, JSTOR is a collection of sources that many people use, and all you would have to do is click here and type in your subject. That is one option. I prefer EBSCOhost using the educational resources because we are working on master's degrees in education, so we focus primarily on the resources that are published in that field. So you can scroll down to ERIC, and it has EBSCOhost, brand, and then straight to the ERIC, and EBSCOhost is the most easily accessed. So you click there, and you would sign in as your student access, and then it would take you to the search engine so that you can search. And you're always going to look for peer-reviewed sources and sources where you can get the full text. It's not really beneficial to you as an online student to search sources where you just get an abstract or a summary. It wastes your time. So always click that the full text should be available there, and then peer-reviewed. Those two things will bring you on sources that are automatically accepted through our program. So let's say that your topic is early childhood education, and you're just looking in that general area right now. You click on search, and it pulls up 8,593 journal articles or books from peer-reviewed sources that are in that topic. And this is where you get ready to scroll down and you look for items that are interesting to you or that you could possibly base a study around. You might want to narrow your study to how do early childhood education programs help students of poverty, how effective is Head Start, or you could compare different types of early childhood education programs and curricula that are available. So that is how you get a search started through the library at St. Thomas. So this week we're focusing on your research question, and that is your guided, as you've gone through your guided study of your topic, you should be going through materials that make you think of an area where we need to study. So let's just say my topic here would be leveled reading instruction. And my problem that I have located throughout my literature review is that many students in America are still several grade levels behind in reading. And to me, something needs to be done about it. So I'm going to try to focus my research on how to solve that problem and to design a study that will determine a way to help solve that problem. So my research question is, how does leveling for reading instruction impact students' reading ability? So that's just a general question where I want to find out if students that are more advanced are grouped together, students who are struggling are grouped together, like group 1, 2, and 3, or red, blue, and yellow based on ability. Does that help students? Does it help students better than keeping them all in a mixed group, which is called a heterogeneous group? So then if I'm going to do a quantitative study where I have statistics and measures of objective information versus a qualitative study where I would simply start with a research question and answer how, I would develop a hypothesis. So my hypothesis would be there is a relationship between leveled reading instruction and student reading ability. Now, if you're working in the area, for example, of early childhood education, you might want to say, how does a certified early childhood education program help students better than students who stay at home or students who just go to regular daycare? So you might want to compare those two groups. And you're not actually doing this study for this class, you're just designing a study. So you don't have to stress out about, well, who am I going to study? Where am I going to go? And all of that. You're just setting it up. So the research question is the question to be answered by the study. The research hypothesis is your prediction about the results of your test. So, for example, in the reading, I'm going to determine if leveled reading instruction improves students' ability to read. Does it help reading achievement? So my prediction would be leveled reading instruction improves student reading. So the research hypothesis, there are two different kinds. You will determine the difference between variables or a relationship among variables, which you compare a group of students who have leveled reading instruction and a group of students who have heterogeneous instruction, or you will talk about how the leveled reading impacts the student's ability to read. So you're going to talk about two different types of data this week, and the discussion question asks you to talk about whether or not you'll be using descriptive and inferential data. Now, in most cases, you'll use both, but basically, just from a very beginning standpoint, descriptive statistics explain how data is collected and organized, and it puts that information in categorizes it. It summarizes trends and explains patterns, and it summarizes results just for the group that you're studying. It does not translate into a larger population. So if you are studying a group of fourth graders at an urban school in a particular district, then if you are going to infer what works with these students will work with all students in urban schools, then you're going to need inferential data. If you're just talking about what works with those students, like if you're studying a pilot program, then it's just descriptive. So in inferential statistics, you infer from the data, you test the hypothesis, which basically means if you do a quantitative analysis, you will use inferential data. If you're using numbers and statistics and you're comparing achievement, you will use inferential data, but you need descriptive data as well. Inferential statistics determine relationships. They make predictions into larger populations. So basically, you start with the information you get from the descriptive data, and for more sophisticated studies and comparisons, you use inferential data as well. So descriptive statistics describe the results of the findings, but if you are going to describe the entire population that you have studied, you stay there. But if you are saying this will work with more than just this group, all kids in the school rather than just this 25, then you will use inferential statistics because you're inferring and drawing conclusions about a larger population. So scales of measurement, this is an area where you actually determine and label your data. And this is brand new information for most of you. So you're trying to figure out what inferential and descriptive statistics are, and then you come up with this word, scales of measurement. Basically, that's just a fancy way of saying, how am I showing differences? So nominal data focuses on quality, but it only represents a name or a number. It's just a label. That's the difference between. So if you take a look at the distribution, it's just for information. It's not to say one is better than the other. It's just to separate out each item in the study. For example, if you're studying a group of kindergartners, you might say African American students will have the number 1, Asian students will have the number 2, Caucasian students will have the number 3, and Hispanic students will have number 4. That's not a ranking. It's just saying if we're going to compare how each group of student reacts or responds to certain stimuli, then we want to be able to differentiate between those students if it's relevant in the study. Now, if race is not relevant in the study, then it would serve no purpose. But you might say 1 for boys, 2 for girls. Or you might say 1 for students who are already 5 and 2 for students who are still 4. Just if it's relevant and you need to separate those groups for the study. Ordinal types of measurement shows an ordered scale. It tells you which is larger or which is better. So it has to do with percentages. And this is very frequent in basic quantitative studies. So you might say 1 is poor, 2 is below average, 3 is average, and 4 is excellent. So the higher the number goes, the better the performance. And then with interval data, it demonstrates a specific scale in equal increments, figuring the distance between 2 items using mathematical operations such as average and standard deviation. A grading scale is an example of an interval measurement. A 90 to a 100 is an A, an 80 to an 89 is a B. So they're exactly the same distance apart, and it was a mathematical operation to determine how much larger or how different. So interval measures the distance in between, and that is very, very specific. And most quantitative studies use interval measurement, but you're also going to use nominal and ordinal, perhaps at least nominal in the same case. So now we talk about research variables, and I want to be very careful about this because independent and dependent, it's not intuitive just the way the terms are described, but the independent variable has a measurement and the dependent variable has a measurement. And the independent variable affects the dependent variable or it does not. So let's say we're studying a group of kindergarten students and we're going to, the practice that we're going to have is calendar math. We're going to implement calendar math in this kindergarten class. The independent variable is calendar math, because the calendar math is going to make the students learn more or it's not going to make the students learn more. The students are the dependent variable. They're the ones that are impacted, and it's really the student's performance that's going to be impacted. So whatever you're doing to that group is the independent variable. So then we can explore relationships among variables. So if you're trying to look at relationships rather than differences, you're going to look at correlational variable 1 and correlational variable 2. And what this means is the more calendar math we do, the smarter kids get in math. That's a positive correlation. But if we said the more calendar math we do, the less students perform in math, That's a negative correlation. It means that calendar math is making it worse instead of making it better. So if you think about the correlation part, positive or negative, before you think about the variables, it's easier to understand, and then you can attach the measurement to it. So there's more information on correlational research on this link that you can access also in your PowerPoint presentation, and it has a really great explanation in real people language, not textbook language, so that you can understand about correlational variables. So if we said, does Head Start make a difference in students' lives? Is there a correlation between school performance or graduation from high school and students who go to Head Start? If those students who went to Head Start for pre-K for an entire year, the more experience they have in preschool, the better they do in school, or it makes it worse. That would be a negative correlation. But you have to be careful, because just because it doesn't make it better doesn't mean it makes it worse. So the discussion board question today is: state your research question, indicate the type of research your question lends itself to, descriptive or inferential, and explain why. So if you determine whether or not you're talking about just one group of students or one group of applications or one group of teachers, and the study focuses on them alone, you're probably going to stay in descriptive. But if you're going to translate that study and how it impacts learning overall, and your research problem has to do with more than just one small group of students, then it's going to be inferential. You're going to explain why by talking about whether or not your study is qualitative or quantitative, and then how you're using your data. So on a discussion board, an excellent reply supports a position based on research. It's great if you can reference one of your sources in a reply. It offers a contrasting point of view, or it begins a new topic, or it clarifies a point already made, or it critically reflects on comments made, challenges other students. So saying that, yes, that's great, I like your idea, I might try that, that's very complimentary, but it's not a graduate level response. It's not a critical response to another student. So that's just some guidance for your future postings. So on the discussion board, you have the initial post and the response post. So the initial post, if you want the 2.5 points, must be logically organized, easily followed, specific, effective, and has logical transitions, and is in professional format. And that's referencing the type of language that you use. Are you using graduate level language? Are you writing professionally? And are you using APA format? Now, I'm not very strict on grammar with discussion boards. I don't criticize your grammar publicly on discussion boards. I try to just encourage you. But if you post by Thursday at 11:59, you receive 1 point. And that's just a placeholder to let you know I've seen that you've posted it on time. And then on Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on when you post your replies, then I score the whole thing. And then the response integrates multiple perspectives. Are you using the research? Are you reflecting on other discussants' views? And that's how you get the full credit there. So for assignment 2, you are only doing the research problem part of the proposal. And last week it was a little bit confusing, because when you clicked on the example, the entire research proposal was there, and you really only needed to focus on the literature review part. So you are including the setting description, a clear statement of your problem. For example, my problem was that students in elementary school are still reading 3 grade levels behind before they leave elementary school. That was the problem. It has to be in the work setting and the profession that is behavioral and observable, something that you can identify. The subjects are clearly identified. Now, this is all on your assignment page on the website. The research question is clearly identified as a question of differences or relationship. The research hypothesis, if it is quantitative, fits with the research and the levels of measurement of the variables, and is behavioral, observable, practical, and doable. If you are doing a qualitative study, your research question, there is no hypothesis. The question actually comes at the end. The result of the study is a question. And then your purpose of the study makes sense, provided the research problem, question, variables, and hypothesis all go together. And it includes the variables, the research hypothesis, and the purpose of the study. So I use the rubric pretty strictly. and I'm looking at APA style, and I'm looking at use of language. So throughout the graduate program, if you can focus on APA and do well with APA and do well with use of language, you are coming a long way with the assignment. We usually do pretty well in conceptual analysis and methodology, but going from undergraduate school to graduate school, APA style, and focusing on formal language is a big shift. But the whole idea of graduate school is that you're beyond your bachelor's and you're working in a professional learning setting. So that's all I have for today. Do you have any questions?
Yes. You said, yeah, because I was confused about you said that we're not actually doing a study. So are we using one of our sources or more than one of our sources in doing our research? I'm kind of confused.
Right. So basically you come up with a topic that you're interested in, a general topic. And as you go through the materials in the literature review, 10 sources, you're narrowing down your topic to a research problem. What problem are you finding? And from that problem, you're developing a research statement. What do you want to find out? What do you want to help solve? A greater problem. And then from that problem, you develop your research question or your research hypothesis. And so it gets really focused from the literature review down to the proposal. You go from just one general area to something that you could design and study yourself. So you're creating a proposal based on multiple resources, because when you write a study, you want to show that you've done a lot of research and you're proving that this is something that needs to be corrected. And so you're out there combing through all of the work, well, most of the work that you can reach that has been done. And so for the purposes of this class, it's only 10 sources. And then you want to focus really specifically. What is the general topic that you chose?
For me, I have looping.
Looping. Okay. And so you can either compare students who are looped and students who are not looped. You can do a greater study, or you can follow a group of students who have been looped and focus on specific things. I know that there are benefits to looping, and it depends on the age group, it depends on the level, but it also depends on the teacher. Because if there's not a good relationship between the student and the teacher, they're stuck with that teacher for 3 years or 2 years, depending on how far the looping goes. So you might want to focus in specifically, or you might just want to compare looping for a group of students who are similar to another group and 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, for example, or kindergarten, 1st, 2nd. And you might want to compare the achievement in one specific area, such as reading. Do students benefit in the area of reading when they are looping with the same teacher? Or you could even study their social, the way they adapt socially. So you just have to focus more than just looping, something specific about looping that you're interested in, and then guide your process through something very specific. You might want to just focus on looping for students in a particular area, like an urban or a rural district, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because my research problem, to me, I guess as you're saying, the more specific you are, the better. Because my focus was going to be on 8th graders in a science classroom to see if using them, for the 3 years in middle school would make a difference on their 8th grade science tests, that they take at the end of the year.
Okay, so if they had the same teacher for 6th grade science, 7th grade science, and 8th grade science. And so what are you going to compare? Are you going to compare a group of students who are looped and a group of students who are not?
Correct.
Right. So yes, that's perfect. That is specific enough. And it could be in 2 different schools in the same area, or it can be in the same school. It's better if it's in the same school because they live in the same neighborhoods. In general, you have the same kinds of students, ability levels. If you do that, you want to focus on heterogeneously grouped students where you have gifted, special ed, a balance of races, a balance of socioeconomic, so that you're really able to compare those 2 groups. And then, or you could compare 2 groups of students that loop with 2 different teachers. Like this group loops with this, and it could get complicated that way. But yes, that is specific enough. And rather than just doing a research report on looping, you're focusing on middle school science. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. So feel free to email me if you have another question this week, and I'll be checking email, and I'm available most of the time. I try to reply very quickly, but with it being summertime, sometimes I'm in the morning, I'm lazy. So, but anyway, if you need anything, just let me know. Thank you so much for signing on.
Thank you.
Take care.